Appreciate you all being here this morning. We're going to talk about buyers, mainly about investigations, inspections, and things like that. In the contract, there are specific things that need to be followed, and for the protection of your buyers. Obviously, we want to make sure that all of the inspections that are required are done, and any buyers want to also have, in addition to what anything that might be normal, like home inspection, pest inspection, things like that. There may be others that they want to have done. Also, we want to talk about a little bit about contingencies and things like that. The contingencies affect the inspections and that sort of thing, and we have to get them done within certain time frames. And those time frames are usually 17 days or whatever you have to do to comply with both your buyers and sellers' expectations in the contract. So I want to make sure we follow through on that. And those are the L sections is for the contingencies, and the L3 is the investigation of the properties. That's the inspections. We'll also talk about the removal or waivers of contingencies a little bit. So that particular section is important. The section 8 is about the loan contingencies. And again, we get into the investigation of the properties under section C, and also title information is a part of the investigations of all properties that are being purchased. The buyer will get a title report, preliminary title report, and you as an agent will probably have to help them understand what it means and make sure that they understand it's an insurance for the title company, that it protects them and that they've done their due diligence to the point that they could in investigating the current status of the property. If anybody has any questions while I'm talking or anything like that, don't hesitate to interrupt me. I'm happy to stop and talk about anything as necessary. And then down further in the contract under paragraph number 12, the actual buyer's investigations of the property and matters affecting the property. Want to make sure you are able to explain these things to your clients, your buyers, so that they have a good understanding of what they should be looking for as far as they're concerned. With new first-time buyers, obviously, it's important that they get an understanding that you feel is that they are clear in knowing what their expectations are regarding the property, and that make sure that they're covered in all of the possible questions and answers that come up during the investigations. Because of the way things are changing and the new emphasis on buyer protections, there are more and more demands on the part of sellers to give more information about their properties. Not only what they know, but what they are aware of from the standpoint of any reports they had received when they bought the property. There's more and more expectations that they're going to be giving that information for the new buyers. And then the time periods, removals of contingencies and cancellation rights. On paragraph 14, this is the one that really stands out in the contract, and we need to follow through with the buyers to make sure that they are doing what they need to do, getting the inspections done, preparing any requests for repairs and things like that, and making within time frames. We don't want to let anything slide by because we could be held liable, or it could cause the failure of the contract. If buyers are not able to purchase contract, there's always the potential they would lose their deposits, and sometimes they think that that's not going to happen. You need to be very cautious in talking about the deposits, and don't give them any expectations that there's no problem, and if they don't do something that has to be done, that they'll definitely get the deposits back. That isn't the case. So you want to be careful about those things. And under paragraph 14, there are things that are related to reviewing the documents that they get from the inspections. It's best to go over with them the inspections that come back to you, and preparing any requests for repairs that might be needed. Um, New buyers, first-time buyers, and things like that may not have a good understanding of what they should do. You don't want to tell them what they should do, but you can tell them what they might want to do. Again, you're not going to direct anybody to do something that they don't want to do. But again, I'm aware that your job as an agent is to heighten their awareness of what is needed to protect their interest in purchasing a home. So again, you want to go through this with your buyers and make sure that there's a good understanding about what is necessary in the time frames that are allotted to you. Once you get an inspection completed, you want to go over the inspection again. I want to repeat myself a little bit sometimes, but to make sure you go over it with your clients to be sure that they understand as best possible. You're not a contractor or anything like that, so you really can't make a you can do is present the information and explain to them what you're trying to do is to get them to be aware, and if they think they need to have further work explained on, or other inspections to follow up on. A lot of times the first thing they do is to have a home inspection and a pest inspection, and in the process of a home inspection there may be a issue with a roof that is identified by the home inspector that might need additional inspection by a roofing contractor. So then you would follow through and have another inspection done for roofing. Again, you want to make sure you get those things in the time frames that are allowable. As far as the rights to cancel because of the contingencies, you want to make sure you go through this section and understand it, and what is necessary for the buyers to protect themselves from being forced to lose a contract. In today's market, even though it's changing a little bit, we here in the North Bay area are experiencing constant demand for homes. Prices are still rising in our area. Things are going a little bit slower than they had been for a few months, but there still is a high demand, and we expect that to continue here in Humboldt area because of the growth of new opportunities that are coming into the area from Cal State Poly, Humboldt, and the landlines, sea line, the lines that are coming from Singapore area are terminating in our Arcata area. Windmills, wind farm is being developed over the next couple of years. And there's a fish farm that's being developed over the next 3 to 4 years. And this is bringing in more highly skilled technical people, and creating more opportunities, especially from Cal Poly and the internet lines that are coming to us from the Southeast Asia. So there's going to be a constant demand in our area for growth of homes, and we don't have any real development plans by any construction companies in our area at this time. So we're looking forward to a strong market from a seller standpoint to continue for some time. And we need to watch out for notices of if we don't meet the deadlines that are necessary, we may get notices to perform. And we want to be prepared for those things if they do occur, and make sure that we try to avoid those from getting to that point. Sellers are demanding in many instances that contingencies be removed sooner than they might necessarily be. They should be. Obviously, they want them removed so that they're not held liable for anything, and they don't have any suspense in continuing on with the transactions that they're involved in. And again, understand what the effect of a cancellation of a contract on a deposit. Make sure there's no misunderstanding or expectations on the part of a buyer about their deposits. They have to complete their responsibilities to protect that deposit. So if they get to a point where there is a cancellation, that they will be able to get the deposit back. And again, repairs are optional on the part of the sellers. But again, any repairs that are done should be completed before the verification of the property, before closing. And that want to make sure that all those things, and again, verification of those repairs is not a contingency to not completing the sale. It's very important that that's understood, because if you get to the point where you're doing a final inspection walkthrough and something has not been done, again, it's not part of the contingency to not complete the sale. So you need to be very careful about that. Any questions anywhere from anyone at this time? Okay. I want to go over the forms that are very important. The buyer's investigation advisory. This is a part of the packet of the purchase contract. It's the last, or next to the last form that's included in the documents that are signed off for the purchase. And it stresses the importance of the inspection of the physical condition of the property that's being purchased. Not just the structures, but also the land itself, if there's any large parcels of land, but even land around a small parcel. And you want to make sure that everything is meeting the expectations of your clients. If anything comes up during an inspection that requires further detail, again, you're not in a position to make decisions for clients, but you can help them find other professionals if they need. As I said, in condition of a roof, there's something that needs to be done, or if there's a plumber that should be hired to take care of things. Those things must be determined, and you can recommend to the buyers that they put these things into the request for repairs, and try to get the further professional, appropriate servicers to do whatever has to be done. And again, like it says here in paragraph 2, the broker's obligation, which is our obligation, is that we don't have the expertise in all the areas, and therefore cannot advise any on many items. Again, we don't guarantee any of the professionals that we refer people to. And again, it should always be I have a form that has a list of pest inspectors and roof inspectors, water system inspectors, sewer septic system inspectors, things like that, that I give to buyers if for them to make choices about who they should or who they would want to um, use in following up on inspections. Kathleen, do you have a question?
I do. So when you submit the form for request for repairs,
Yes.
is that considered, can they just say no and you're still in contract? Is that, or can they say no and you're out of contract? I mean,
That would be a decision by the buyer. Okay, if they can say no and you stay in contract, if the
okay,
buyer is willing to go further.
gotcha. Okay,
However, if your buyer says, well, we don't really want to proceed, if something is serious enough that they don't want to take a chance that something is going to be more problematic down the road for them, they can say, no, let's cancel the contract.
but
Because,
it's
and
the
that,
buyer's, decision, not the sellers to cancel if they request repairs.
right.
Okay,
Right.
thank
Yeah,
you.
because the seller has the option to either say yes or no.
Okay,
And they don't have to do anything that's asked for in any request for repairs.
great. I just didn't want anyone to kick anyone out because maybe there's a backup offer for more money or,
Oh, yeah, no things happen. They make it, if they have a backup offer that seems much, much more attractive to them, they may do everything they can to try to encourage a buyer to back out of a deal.
right. But they can't force it just because you requested repairs.
No, as long as everybody is in compliance with the contract, they can't just drop the whole thing. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. And every situation is different. So if something comes up like that, it's very good. It's important to talk to the brokers and also the legal assistance that we might have available to us to make sure everybody's covered properly. So again, in this forum, this buyer's investigation advisory, and again, this is just an advisory. We're telling the buyer that this is information they should find out for their best interest in pursuing the purchase of the property that is of interest. They're advised to investigate the conditions and the suitability of all aspects of the property, including to the following. And this is a whole list of things that they should be considering. And then if they do not do so, they're acting against the advice of the brokers. And again, this is another disclaimer. We're always disclaiming all of our, we're here to facilitate. Once we're in contract, we're here to negotiate and facilitate. So other than that, we don't have any direct responsibilities, and we can't assume that we can assume those things or take them on in any way. Again, the general condition they should look at, the general condition of the property and its systems and components, foundation, roof, the age and any potential leaks, or if there's current leaks, or if there've been past leaks, the useful life of a roof, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, electrical, mechanical, if there's any pools or spas, any structure or non-structural systems and components, fixtures, built-in appliances, any personal property included in the sale, and the energy efficiency of the property. These are things that general conditions that they should be looking at. Here in Humboldt, we have very few properties with air conditioning. And very properties with pools and spas, more spas than pools, but again, not a lot of those things are part of our normal availability in homes. There's been a lot of stress recently on the square footage and the age and boundaries of properties. again, when we are responsible for as much measuring of properties for the benefit of our clients, both sellers and buyers. And we do that on every property that we service. Wood destroying pests, which is obviously termites and ants and things like that. We want to make sure that's a very big issue, especially here in our area. We have a lot of constant issues with things like that. Soil stability. We have a number of areas in Humboldt that are hillsides and things like that where there is movement of land. There have been areas in the city of Eureka that have had movement where the city has been held liable for some things. But again, people don't want to buy a home and wake up some morning where part of it is moving. Be careful with those things. If a home has a history, a property has a history of problems, but people still want to buy that home, they need to do all the investigations necessary to ensure that they can stabilize the property or that it has already been stabilized. We have one area here in Eureka where there's a home on one street in a very high-end area that they have slippage of land over, have had for a number of years, and the city has been held liable for some of those things. People are still buying those homes with those understandings. And again, they take on a certain amount of responsibility when they do that. Water and utilities, well systems, components, waste disposal, anything that affects the water coming to the home and going out from the home, and septic systems and things like that. It's important to have those things checked very carefully. Fail over a number of years, and systems that are not maintained well have to be cleaned and updated and things like that. Any environmental hazards, usually we get that from the NHD. But again, if anything comes up, it comes out in a TDS or an SBQ, and there's information about something, you may want to have some further follow-up on those things. If there's any lead contamination, again, most of the homes in Humboldt area are quite old in relation to the areas. We have a lot of homes that were built before 1978, and even homes built after 1978 used some lead, even though not been allowed to by law. So we have to make sure we check into the lead-based paint issues. We don't have issues mostly with things like radon and other gas things. We have very few chemical storage issues. Contaminated soil and water, there could be some areas that have problems. Electromagnetic fields, we have some things. Nuclear sources, we do have a nuclear plant in Eureka that has been decommissioned and is being gradually, hopefully made safer than it has been. Mold is an issue in our area, fungus and things like that. Earthquakes and flooding, we have a number of areas where we have faults. We have off the coast a conjunction of number of faults, and so we're in a precarious situation in regards to earthquakes. But we've had a few since I've been living here over the past 20 some years that have been quite strong and have had some damage in my own home. So earthquakes are always a possibility. Flooding is always a possibility along the coast. We have some developments, homes that are built in flood zones. So those are things that need to be people need to be made aware of. And again, they need to investigate flood areas. FEMA has published a number of maps and things like that, and a lot of this is, again, comes from the NHD report that we get. Fire hazard and other insurance issues. The way insurances have been handled, are being handled now, there are a lot of areas that insurance companies will not cover. And if somebody's trying to get a loan, they're not going to be able to probably get the loan without the insurance being available to them. And if the insurance is considered in a worrisome area, it's going to be very costly. So again, buyers need to understand that. They may say, hey, I've got this a beautiful property, it's right there on the ocean, and it would be something I'd really like to enjoy, but not being able to get insurance, they're not going to be able to purchase it if they have to use a loan. Same thing with fire hazard. Over the last few years, because of the seriousness of fires in our areas and in all of our areas, insurances are not available unless they're extremely expensive. So there are things that the state is trying to get new rules and regulations established to do as much as they can to get insurance available. But again, it's going to be costly, as is everything else that the government involves itself. Any building permits that are needed, zoning conditions, governmental requirements and addresses. We're having a lot of areas up here where lateral sewer lines are being required to be inspected and repaired because they're old and they don't meet current standards. And if there's any leaks at all, they need to be repaired. And again, the sellers may have to do that, or buyers may assume that responsibility, depending on which particular area is being affected. Arcata has very strong rules. Eureka is starting to implement the same type of thing. There's other areas in Fortuna and other areas near there. Every area has its own rules and regulations when it comes to the laterals and things like that. So those things need to be investigated. You need to be aware of those things so that don't want anybody to be surprised that something has to be addressed during the purchasing process. Any rental property restrictions. There are a number of cities in the county up here that are trying to impose rent controls and things like that, as they are around different parts of the state. So again, we need to make sure that if those things are being implemented, we need to be aware of them and help the buyers to understand, and buyers need to check those things out. As far as the security and safety, again, this is going to be something that the buyers need to investigate and make sure that they're satisfied that they're going to be moving into an area that's comfortable and meets the standards of their lifestyle, protecting their interests. This gets into alarm systems and things that pool safety for children and hot tubs, fire safety issues, and other measures concerning the features of the property. Neighborhoods, area subdivision conditions, personal factors. This covers pretty much everything else that wasn't talked about above. Neighborhood area conditions, including the schools, law enforcement, crime statistics, registered felons or offenders, fire protection, government services that might be needed, anything that has to be paid for by the buyers in the future. if anybody's aware of those things. The buyers need to investigate and find out so that they're not surprised by something that could come along after they have purchased the property. We report about our agricultural activities. We have a form that makes people aware that we are in an agricultural environment here, and there could be some neighborhoods affected more than others from cattle and things like that. Every year we have Canadian geese who come through the area, and they affect the area in some areas. We have a bird sanctuary that encourages them to stay here during the winter. The buyers should investigate. If again, you don't want to tell them what to investigate, but you want them to be aware that these things are potentially any developments that are going to be developed over the next few years that may have an effect on their property. If they buy their property in an area that they feel very comfortable and nice about, maybe there's in the works some plans to build a new development in some close proximity to where they're going to be living. They should be aware of that. So again, this is something that they should investigate. Any noise issues around their properties that they might have concerns about. There's all kinds of things that could affect that in regards to noise. Again, people are entitled to have a safe, quiet environment that they can live in. But if something is going to be affecting them from a noise standpoint or other type of intrusion of those rights, they need to investigate those as much as possible. So again, you want to help people to be aware that these are things that they should be looking at and that they should consider when they're buying a home, to help the buyers understand things. There's a tendency sometimes for buyers to say, okay, hey, I can live with this, I can live with that. Well, you want them to make sure that they understand that. And this is one of the reasons why this form should be filled out and signed off by the buyers. And as I said, it's part of the initial packet, and you want to make sure it is completed when you make your offer. As far as when people decide they want to have something investigated, you want them to make the choices. And this form, the buyer's investigation elections, the BIE form, is intended to help buyers identify what type of inspections they want to have done. And they run the gamut. Here, there's a list, and this form explains their rights and duties in doing the investigation. Again, it reinforces the fact that this is the best way to protect their interests. If they choose not to do something, that's their choice, but they have made that choice, and you haven't forced them or suggested to them that they have to do something different. Again, this is another disclaimer to a certain extent that they've read this information, they understand these are things that they want to have inspected. General home inspection, wood destroying pest inspection, those are things that are almost automatically decided to be done. Chimney inspections, we had some earthquake damage a few years ago that affected a lot of fireplaces and chimneys and things like that on the homes especially in Eureka area. So chimney inspections may be something that people would want to have done. Electrical, again, if after seeing the home inspection, they may want to have an inspection done. Again, this form is you choose, you can be number one, number two, you can have this form filled out as you go along through the process to make sure that you're doing you're having done the inspections that are requested by the buyers to cover everything. If lead paint is an issue, again, they can choose to have that done. Any plumbing issues, they can ask for plumbing inspection. Square footage. Usually when I meet with the buyer, I will try to have them do a measurement of the home with me. Sometimes it's not convenient, but whenever it is, I will do that so that they're a part of the measuring process and know what's what. They want to have something further inspected, whether it be the interior, exterior of the home, things like that. They can request to do that. Square footage, that's that. Structural, anything structural that be a concern, easements and encroachments. Those things should be investigated by the buyers if there's something that is a concern. And again, all of these things, lot size, foundation, any of these other things that they want to have inspected, you want them to fill this form out and to be sure that they are comfortable with what their choices have been and that they're satisfied that they've done what they want to do. And again, it gives you protection that they have made those choices. Once they have been made their choices and time is of the essence regarding doing things, then there's another form to have inspection waivers if they do not want to have something done. Waiver, they can do that. Don't recommend it. We always suggest that they follow through and get a home inspection for their own benefit. I repeat it as many times as possible during my discussions with them when they're buying a home. I keep saying, get an inspection, get an inspection, get an inspection. And I say it 3 times to make sure that they're getting as much emphasis on that as possible. And so that they can't come back. And I do it consistently with all the buyers that I meet with. And you get used to doing it that way. You will be safe in doing the things that you're doing, making sure that everybody, if somebody was ever to bring up some legal issues, everybody would have to say that you said it the same way every time you've done it. And again, this form is another disclaimer. If they choose not to get a home inspection, it's against our advice. And again, as far as same thing with pest inspections. Now, if there's a loan involved, most homes will require a pest inspection. But again, if somebody is not going through a lender, they can choose to not have the inspection done. And then any other things that we recommend that they do have inspections on. And again, it's recommendations, not being direction. It's a recommendation. If they choose not to do those things, they can do that. And again, it has a disclaimer that it's against our advice. If they've received, excuse me, if they've received other prior reports, or if the seller has had a report, they can use that report for their own benefit if they choose to. However, if that report recommends it's further inspections, the broker, we as a broker for them, recommend that they obtain any additional inspections. If the home inspector says the roof, there should be a follow-up with that. And again, the bottom of this report is another continuing disclaimer that the buyer has independently considered the above and has made the decision to do what they're doing or not doing, and that the broker basically has done everything we have done, recommended to them. And if they are satisfied with this, this is what they're satisfied with. Again, use these forms to get the information in writing from your clients, again, for their protection and for your protection in all cases. Any questions? Very quiet. Okay. All right. Well, I've covered the information that I wanted to present for you. If you have any questions now or in the future, don't hesitate to contact me and I'll be happy to do that. I don't have a class scheduled for next week, but if that changes, because we're trying to do these on a 3 or 4 week sequence and then take a break for a bit. But anything else, if anybody has anything that they would like me to address, don't hesitate and I'll put together a class for that. In the meantime, I'm just going to wish you guys have a good week. Be very successful and enjoy life. Any questions?
Thank
All
you.
right.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank you all for being, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, John. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye. Take care.